think we're on. I can never tell. I tried looking. Oh, here we go. That's me looking around like a dummy. And there's a delay. That's... I hate that. I hate that. Alright, well, at least I can see everybody's stuff now. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us here at Sound Booth Theater Live. And today is the Hell's Rejects, another Hell's Rejects edition of Sound Booth Theater Live. Whoa! Did you see that spinny shit? Where did that come from? This is a Hell's Rejects edition of Sound Booth Theater Live. That was kind of weird, but it happened. I don't think I really need to change it. But thanks for coming and hanging out, guys. And yeah, today I just wanted to rep this series some more. The last, let's see, The Devil's Due is the one that I did before this one. It's the third book in the series. It's out on Audible now. And I didn't do a Sound Booth Theater Live for that one back then because I felt like I'd already done two so close together at the, when the first one came out. So I figured I'd give you guys a break from it. And also because I feel like I don't want to do any more stuff like past the first book because it seems so spoilery, and if you haven't read the first book, then that extra content's not going to do much for you. But now that a couple months has passed by since I've done a Sound Booth Theater Live on the Chaos of the Covenant series, oh, that's what this series is called, by the way, by M.R. Forbes. Let's see, I think this book, actually Kill the Queen is the one we're about to be releasing very soon. Kill the Queen is, I think, the 19th book I've done for M.R. Forbes. He's my best client. He's always sticking with me, and I'm glad for it because he writes characters so well, and that's my thing. So, before we get started on this, I want to push a little bit of other stuff. I think I really just want to push one book, and that would be Fantasy Online Hyperborea, because it just came out on Monday, and it needs the damn attention. Now, first of all, if thank you. If you haven't picked it up yet, go do that now. Or if you want a free audiobook here, then you gotta request it in the chat, or you have to request some kind of scene from the Chaos of the Covenant series that you'd like to see me do live, if you've already listened to any of it. But Fantasy Online needs your attention. It's amazing. I was so happy to have it release, and I'm just waiting for people to gobble it up because I want them to hear Hiccup. I want them to hear Feetwix. The characters are just so funny in this book. And I had Ian wants... Okay, see, it works, guys. It works. Ian asked for one. I give him one. There's 4 left today. 4 more audiobooks left today. So, yeah, Fantasy Online, this is Harmon Cooper's second lit RPG series. And the way he's written it, the feedback loop kind of happens like way before this series. It's the main character of the feedback loop, Quantum Hughes. He gets mentioned a lot in the Fantasy Online series because one of the characters, Feetwix, there with the stupid double sword, Quantum is his hero, and so they kind of play the game in the same way, but their personalities are vastly different. So, yeah, go pick this up, guys. It's so good. It was so worth it for me to do it because there's so many great characters. I love the Japanese flavor. Like, there's so much Japanese culture outside of the game. I mean, most lit RPGs, it's like, oh, there's a world, but forget that world because we're talking about the game. They introduce the characters sometimes in the real world just cuz, and then they get right to the game and they forget about everything else. But with this book, it's like 50-50. And there's so much there's so much cool culture, like Japanese culture stuff in the real world. Yes, you can, Truffle Guy. 3 left. See, people are jumping on this. Yes, you get an audiobook. You get an audiobook. Absolutely. Go check it out, guys. Anyway, back to our Hell's Rejects episode of Sound Booth Theater Live. And so I need to pick a scene. Now let's see. I'm pretty sure I still have Hell's Sometimes I will just grab the... Yeah, here it is. Okay, I think what I'll do is I'll go to the scene where we get introduced to the whole team kind of at the same time, after they've been drafted by Olus Man. Olus is actually my favorite character in this series. His voice is inspired very much by who's the guy? Quentin Tarantino uses him a lot now. He's a German guy. He's a German actor. Let me get rid of... There we go. I had to get rid of some of those tabs. I can get rid of this too. Keyboard Maestro, you go away. Alright. Just to save some CPU. I can never remember his name either. Let's see. He's the main Nazi in Inglourious Bastards, and he was the doctor who frees Django in Django Unchained at the very beginning of the movie. Christoph Waltz, yes. So Christoph Waltz is my biggest inspiration for Olus Man's character. So I wanted to run through the scene where he's basically telling all the Hell's Rejects what is up. I just gotta find it. Django Unchained is hilarious, yes. Okay, actually, what we'll do first is we'll introduce you to Olus in this one scene where he actually meets Gant, who is my second favorite character. Gant is described in the book as a sloth-looking creature. Okay, he's an alien. He looks kind of like a sloth without the claws, I think. I think he's got, like, I think he's got thumbs. Like, I think his hands look kind of like this. And, but he's small, probably sloth-sized, but he's a total badass. He's an engineer. He's a genius. And he's like the main character's best friend. So, let's get into Olus. This is Olus coming to Hell. Now, Hell is, in this series, Hell is a planet. It's a prison planet where they send mostly war criminals or military criminals, and A lot of the time, they get sent there under suspicious circumstances. Like no trial, you know? The kind of stuff where the government wants to keep it hush-hush. And, you know, they don't really want to have to follow the law in order to send someone to prison. So Hell's this highly suspicious place, and Ollis Mann is the director of the OSI, which is kind of like the space CIA almost. But he got the job because he used to be an assassin, and he was a badass assassin, and he's just really smart, and he knows how to infiltrate stuff. Anyway, he's investigating the disappearance or the theft of of these ships called the Fire and the Brimstone. You can see them here, kind of here in the second book's cover. Oh, there it is. And those are like super high-tech ships that were built and immediately stolen. The prototypes were immediately stolen, and they killed an entire space station with them and everything. So he's investigating why these went missing, and he's going to Hell, the prison planet, to see if he can figure some things out. Let's get rid of that. Go away. Okay. Captain Mann, Warden Lurin said, raising a long, narrow hand to his forehead in salute. Welcome to Hell, sir. Thank you, Sergeant, Ollis replied, as the ramp to the shuttle closed behind him. You'll have to excuse me, but I thought Master Sergeant Packard was still running this place. I was communicating with him directly as of 3 days ago. Lurin nodded before looking at the ground. The sergeant was an Atmo, the first extraterrestrial species to travel faster than light, but the last to emerge from hiding. He was small and thin, with a large head and spindly arms that ended with 2 fingers and a thumb. Okay, right away, I love how they describe him. He's like the classic gray alien from X-Files. Yes, he was. My apologies, Captain, but he was killed 2 nights ago, murdered by one of the inmates. Really? Ola said. How did that happen? Nobody is completely sure. The feeds in the cell block were offline at the time. An equipment malfunction, or so the technicians tell me. Quite common. Olus raised his eyebrow to that, but decided to drop the subject. There was no reason to suspect anything out of the ordinary. Not here. Not in a place where murder was almost ordinary. Not in a place where murder was almost ordinary. You have everything prepared as I requested? Of course, sir. I reviewed the instructions you delivered to Warden Packard and made the proper arrangements. Sir, I imagine you would prefer a cool suit? Olus absently wiped some of the moisture from his head. He knew Hell was going to be oppressive, but the stories he had heard didn't do it justice. A cool suit is a good idea, he said. This way, Lurin said, leading him from the hangar to a large lift. They took it 2 floors down to the administration level, a floor that was thankfully climate-controlled. Olus didn't realize how labored his breathing had become until he was able to draw in the cooler air. Suit storage is there, sir, Lurin said, pointing to a door on their left. I'll retrieve the files while you prepare. That'll be fine. Thank you, Sergeant. Lurin saluted and headed down an adjacent corridor, while Olus opened the door to the storage room. A number of suits were hanging from a rack along the wall, marked by species. He searched through the Terran section until he found his size, taking a suit from the rack and holding it. He wasn't sure if he was supposed to wear it clothed or not, so he stripped to his underwear and put it on. He began to feel an immediate chill from the suit reacting with the cooler air in this section. It was a chill he knew wasn't going to last. Lurin was waiting for him when he emerged, a small silver disc held between his thumb and forefinger.
"Sir," he said, saluting again, "the files you requested."
"Thank you," Olus replied, taking the disc.
"Sir, are you sure you want to speak with these individuals? I don't know what benefit it will have to the Republic. They are criminals indeed. Larcenists, rapists, murderers. Soldiers don't get assigned to hell lightly."
"I know how hell works, Sergeant. I've been ordered directly by the Council to investigate the destruction of Egan Heavy Works and the theft of 2 prototype starships. I believe that one or more of the individuals whose detailed files I requested may have information that is vital to carrying out these orders. Not that I need to explain myself to you. Do you understand?"
"Yes, sir," Lurin said. I wasn't questioning your competence, sir. Instead, I am concerned for your well-being. The prisoners can be violent, and I observed that in the case of Bastion Merritt, you were responsible for his incarceration."
"I can take care of myself," Olus said. He couldn't help but wonder why the prison's new warden was trying to dissuade him from meeting with some of the inmates. What was he worried about?
"Of course, sir. There's an interrogation room on level 15. I've arranged for the first prisoner to be brought there for questioning."
"Thank you, Sergeant. Have your people standing by to retrieve the next inmate as I finish my interviews. I intend to have everything I need by the end of the day."
"Yes, sir," Lurin replied. "Follow me, sir."
Olus trailed behind the sergeant, back into the lift and down to level 15. He could feel the air getting hotter on his face as they descended, thankful for the second skin that was helping to keep his temperature static. They walked a dim, narrow corridor to the interrogation room, situated at the base of the guard tower that sat in the center of the cell block. The prisoners had all been cleared from the area for his arrival, allowing him to enter the space without having to see or hear them. Even so, he knew they were there. The scum of the galaxy. Deserters. Killers. Thieves. Individuals who had sworn to defend the Republic and instead had taken advantage of it, using their positions of power in the military for their own personal gain. The select few whose files he was carrying didn't deserve what he was planning to offer them, but he didn't see another option. He had to fight fire with fire. "I'll take it from here, Sergeant," Olus said, as they reached the door to the interrogation room. It was flanked by a pair of guards in battlesuits. I trust you'll be available if I need you?"
"Yes, sir. I'll be back on level 2, continuing my work on the transition. Master Sergeant Packard was not a terribly organized individual."
Olus smiled, returning Sergeant Lurin's offered salute. Then he turned to the door, which one of the guards opened for him before saluting.
"Captain,"
the guard said. "Private?" Olus replied. He entered the room. It was small and barren, save for a chair and small table placed in front of a thick transparency. A prisoner in a tight red suit was on the other side of the divider, watching him as he entered. Okay, so here's another character who's pretty vital to the rest of the book, to the rest of the series. But if you guys are already a fan of Harmon Cooper and the feedback loop, you'll recognize his voice as well. "You!" the inmate said, immediately turning angry. "What the frag are you doing here, you piece of shit? What the frag do you want with me?" He began banging on the glass. "Haven't you done enough to me, you fragger? Haven't you gotten your pound of flesh? Whatever the frag you want, I'm not interested." Olus didn't waver, continuing to the table and chair without changing his posture or cadence. He tossed the disc onto the surface, which responded by displaying a control interface for the device. He tapped it on, projecting the soldier's record in the air between them. "Bastion Merritt," Olus said. "Call sign, Worm. Former Lieutenant Commander in the Republic Intergalactic Navy. A vomit comet bouncehead. Sentenced to life in hell for assaulting a superior officer. Does it still hurt?" Bastion asked. Olus did his best not to react. He couldn't help but remember how the man had attacked him. The HSOC needed a drop onto some backwater planet in the fringe. Bastian had sworn it was suicide, and the pilot decided that beating the shit out of him would save the lives of his fellow soldiers. It was a desperate act that might have been almost understandable if he hadn't left Olus a breath away from death. "Assigned to level 20 for acts of treason," Olus finished. It didn't matter if he was trying to help his crew. He had gone way over the line. In the end, they had attempted to drop without him. In the end, the inexperience of the replacement pilot cost everyone on board their lives. "You've been here for 4 years. Thanks to you," Bastian said. Olus flipped through the file. You've been to medical 8 times since you arrived here for a variety of broken bones and cuts. You've also been responsible for nearly 20 injuries to other inmates." He looked past the projection. "You were running with Pock's crew?" "Until he got himself dead, yeah," Bastian said. "I did what he asked, and he took care of me. Him and Packard both. That's how things work in this shithole." "You know that Packard is dead?" "I heard. It was that bitch that did it. The Demon Queen." "Demon Queen?" That's what us L20s have taken to calling her. First girl I've ever seen down here. She did Pock her first hour. Packard had it in for her before that, though. I don't know why. I guess he got what was coming to him. Him and Pock both." He laughed uncomfortably. Olus absorbed the information, filing it away in another part of his brain. He knew who Lieutenant Cage was. It was hard to believe a breaker with her record would wind up down here, and even harder to believe she had turned so easily to murder. First Pock, and now Packard. She was somewhere in his list of inmates to interview, but in light of her recent history, he was going to have to take her out. There was a delicate balance between dangerous and out of control, and he couldn't afford the latter. "That isn't why you wanted to talk to me, though," Bastian said. "A guy like you doesn't come to hell for minor shit like that. So, what's your deal?" "My deal is your deal, Worm," Olus said. "I came to offer you a chance to go free." All right, I'll be right back. That's the next chapter, but I need to get more water, and I need to blow my nose. I don't think I'm getting sick. Don't jinx me. Just checking the other channels. I don't need these. Actually, I've been kind of teetering on not quite healthy. Just because I've been working too much, not getting enough sleep. But I'm all like this week. I'm going to be caught up. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I'll be able to get sleep soon. All right. 23. So it went for the next 4 hours. Prisoners were cycled into the interrogation room one at a time, where Olus reviewed their files and interviewed them both on their time in hell and their life before it. It had taken weeks to get to this point, weeks of sifting through hundreds of records to come up with a suitable list of potentials, a process that had left him exhausted. He was on his own, forced to secrecy for the sake of his plan, a plan he knew the Council would never approve, a plan he knew General Soto would probably hate him for a plan he knew General Soto would probably hate him for A plan he knew General Soto would probably hate him for having ever... A plan he knew General Soto would probably hate him for having ever considered. The Council wasn't HSOC or OSI. They hadn't seen the things he had seen or done the things he had done before he had gotten caught up in politics and management. He knew what the universe was like. He knew what the fringe was like. There was no other way. It was a dangerous line he was trying to walk, a dangerous game he needed to play. For the sake of the Republic and the safety of millions. It wasn't necessarily a responsibility he wanted, but it was a responsibility he had. He stood up, stretching his body. 4 hours to speak with 12 individuals. He had already cut more than half of them because they were too far gone, their minds destroyed by this place, leaving them either too weak or too unstable to be of any use. Was it the heat that did it? The work? Or was it something else? As he had spoken to the prisoners, he began to form an image of this place in his mind. It was cut and dry on the surface, a Dysterium mine powered by soldiers gone wrong. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was an undercurrent of something beneath the hot, sweaty, dirty, and violent exterior. Like there was something else happening here that wasn't in any of the official documentation. He didn't like secrets. For as much as he was required to keep them, he hated the trouble they brought. Secrets were for skeletons, to keep them hidden away. He had collected an entire shipful during his career, and he was preparing to add another. He had a feeling this was going to be the biggest and grimiest of them all. The door on the other side of the transparency opened. One of the guards moved in first, checking the room before backing to the side. The second guard walked behind the prisoner, keeping a rifle trained on his back. Olus was intrigued. As he understood it, the bracelets the prisoners wore were usually more than enough to keep them in line, and he hadn't seen them treat any of the other inmates with this much concern. "Later, Sen." The prisoner glanced up at him as he entered, a shared look of curiosity on a smallish, fur-covered face. Olus was intrigued by that, too. The others had all either greeted him with anger, disdain, fear, or distrust. "Prilsharnavram?" Olus said, doing his best to get the inflection correct. It hurt his throat, but the prisoner perked up at the attempt.
"Pretty close," Gant said. "What can I do for you, Captain Man?"
"You know who I am?"
"Rumors travel fast around here. You've already pulled 3 other cons from L20. Is this about Faru?"
Olus was surprised again. "You know about Faru?"
"News doesn't travel as fast, but I have pretty good sources."
Excuse me, guys.
"I know about Faru. I was thinking..."
Woof. What's going on here? There's been a gnat flying around in my booth. No, that's him. Never mind. He's been driving me insane. I thought maybe I'd inhaled him finally.
"News doesn't travel as fast, but I have pretty good sources. I know about Faru. I was thinking that maybe you were talking to individuals who knew other individuals, who might have some ideas on who could have done such a thing. Gant walked up to the transparency, rubbing his chin between his 2 fingers and 2 thumbs.
2 fingers. Okay, maybe it's like, maybe it's like this. Maybe his hands are like this.
Then the guards came for me, and I realized Then the guards came for me, and I realized I was wrong. You have to know that I wouldn't know anything about it.
Prilsharnavram, Ola said again, despite the strain on his vocal cords. Everyone here calls you Gant, former Chief Petty Officer in the Republic Intergalactic Navy. You're an engineer.
I was an engineer.
Sentenced to life in hell for...
We don't need to go over that. We both know why I'm here.
Olis didn't push. You are saying you aren't an engineer anymore?
Everyone is a miner down here.
And you don't make things?
No.
You're sure?
Look, Captain, I've been here for 6 years. That's long enough that most of the fur under this suit has been worn away by the chafing. You can only imagine what I look like naked nowadays. Point being, there's no point to being obtuse. Tell me what you want from me, or let me go back to my cell. I only get 4 hours to sleep, and you're cutting into it.
Olis stopped talking. He regarded the Gant. You know about Feru, he said again.
I told you I did, Gant replied.
Then his expression changed, and an almost threatening half-smile formed on his face, revealing a few sharp teeth.
Oh, I get it.
His voice became a loud bark, which Olis's translator announced was strong laughter.
You're in deep, aren't you, Captain?
Very, Olis replied.
Gant was quiet for a minute as he paced along the partition. This isn't a good idea, he said at last.
Do you have something better for me? Gant paced for another minute.
No, but that doesn't make this a good idea.
He stopped and looked at Olis.
I can understand why you wanted to talk to me. What do I get if I agree?
A chance at freedom.
Only a chance? I'd be better off waiting for the Outworlders.
They'll never find hell. It isn't where the rumors claim it is.
The OSI started those rumors?
Olis nodded.
Gant laughed again. I should have known.
He started pacing again. I'm in a bit of a hurry.
You should know, Gant don't make quick decisions. We're a contemplative bunch.
I think it's contemplative, right?
We're a contemplative bunch.
This isn't a difficult decision to make.
Maybe for you. You're already on the outside. Being in here isn't much of a life, but it's a life that I'm accustomed to. A life I know. Going back out there? I didn't do too well out there, or I wouldn't have wound up here.
Olis closed the projection of Gant's file. He knew there was a risk to his participation, but the whole thing was a risk, and he needed someone who was good at fixing things. Someone who would stand out in all of the right ways. I need an answer, he said. Gant growled softly, his eyes locked on Olis, studying him.
One condition,
Gant said. We aren't bargaining, Olis replied.
Yes, we are.
No, we aren't.
Yes, we are. I'm good at reading faces, especially human faces. Tell me something, Captain. Do you have Lieutenant Abigail Cage on your list?
I'm not at liberty to discuss who is and isn't on my list.
You're the head of the OSI,
Gant replied, taking him off guard for the third time. Damn. Taking him off guard for the third time.
You can discuss whatever you decide you want to discuss. You didn't think I knew that, did you? I know a lot of things, Captain. That's why you want me on your side. The question is, how badly?
I had Lieutenant Cage on my original list, Ola said, giving in. I took her off. I was told she murdered Warden Packard.
Murder? Gant said. Who the hell told you that? Warden Lurin?
His eyes shifted toward the corner of the room before sweeping back. Olis flinched, starting to turn to look before realizing what Gant was suggesting. He moved forward, crouching down next to the division, positioned to block the feed.
I'll do what you want, Captain. Gant said softly, but Cage comes with me. We're a package deal.
Why? Olis replied. You can't have known her more than a few weeks. Why is she so important to you?
I like looking at her. She's the only thing here that's hotter than the air.
What's the real reason?
6 years, Captain, and only one person in this place has ever accepted me without question. Another thing about Gant, we're loyal to a fault.
Olis already knew that. If this one had decided to take an alpha, it was going to increase the risk even more. At the same time, there was no way Gant was going to accept without her. Not now. What's going on in this place? Olis asked. What really happened with Packard and Cage?
Why are you asking me? You're OSI. You're supposed to know.
I have an entire galaxy to cover.
Yeah, like that's an excuse. I don't know everything, Captain, despite how it might seem to you. I can tell you that the others are whispering that there was a second body in the room. A woman's body. There aren't any other women on level 20, and I've never seen a female guard down here.
Who was she? Who was she?
No idea. Maybe Packard was into some sort of kink? I don't think so. We have an expression on my world, Captain. Where there are drug room, there is food. And there's a lot of drug room scurrying around down here, if you get my meaning.
I think I do. He stood up. Wait to hear back from me. I'll see what I can do.
Yes, sir,
Gant said, giving him a sloppy salute. Olis turned on his heel and headed out of the room, pausing between the two guards. I'm done with him. Bring him back to his cell.
Yes, sir, one of them said.
Warden Lurin? Olis said, tapping his communicator.
Captain, the warden replied a moment later. How can I be of assistance?
Lieutenant Cage. She was on my list. I want to speak with her.
Sir, Lieutenant Cage is being held in connection with the murder of Warden Packard.
So I've heard, but not from you. She's also not in the personnel files you gave me. Why is that?
Sir, I didn't think you would still want to speak to her in light of recent developments.
I didn't ask you to think for me, Sergeant.
Yes, Captain. My apologies, Captain. Lieutenant Cage isn't well, sir. I can't in good conscience allow you to put yourself at risk. Whatever you think she might know, sir, she won't be able to tell you anything.
I'll decide that for myself, Sergeant.
Sir,
I'm getting the distinct impression that you're trying to interfere with my investigation, Sergeant. Would you like to explain to me why that would be?
Lurin hesitated before responding. My apologies, sir. I've been put into a difficult situation these past few days. I'll have the guards escort you back to level 2. Lieutenant Cage is in isolation in the medical ward. I will meet you there.
That's quite all right, Sergeant. I can find my way. I'd like to speak with her alone.
Sir, if I may...
You may not. My safety and well-being is my own problem, and I take full responsibility for it.
Yes, Captain.
Olis disconnected the comm. Then he glanced at the two guards, half expecting them to try to stop him. He wasn't sure exactly what the Gant's proverb had meant, but he had the distinct feeling it was spot on. If they wanted to keep Cage, whatever the reason, he was going to make it his new life's mission to get her out. All right, so Abigail is Queenie, Abigail Cage. She's a great main character. I love voicing her. But I'm going to go ahead and skip on to... So, eventually, Captain Man recruits everybody he wants to recruit from hell, and they have to escape from the prison. And... let's see. There's a scene where he kind of... There's a scene where he pretty much tells them all that they work for him and there's nothing they can do about it. And that's the next scene I want to do. Where is it? Where is it? Okay. So they escape hell. They're on this new, this junkie ship. I can't remember what it's called. They're on this junkie ship, and he knocks them out before they come on board, because he doesn't trust them to behave themselves because they're all prisoners, right? And this is going to be a shorter one tonight. I think after this scene, maybe one more scene after this, and I'll be done. But thanks again for you guys for coming to hang out with me and for sampling some more of Hell's Rejects. I hope it convinces you to go check out this series because, like I said, I'm working on book 4 now. Book 5 I'm starting next week. Oh, I forgot to show you that cover. Next week it is... I will get started on... Where is it? Oh, yeah. Damned If You Don't is the next one. Where'd it go? There it is. Let me move it up a little. M.R. Forbes gets really cool covers now. But yeah. So that one's what I'm getting started on next week, and that's why I'm doing an episode here. Because I just wanted to remind you guys that these are coming out. Anyway, so yeah, here goes chapter 35. It took 2 hours for the rest of the crew to wake up from the sedative. Pick was the last to revive, sitting up slowly and rubbing his bald head, his mouth hanging open and a glaze over his eyes. "It's about damn time," Bastion said. "I thought I was going to die of boredom waiting for you." "What?" Pick replied. "Where am I?" "Deep space," Ben Hill said. "Middle of nowhere on an outworld starhopper." "That wasn't a dream?" "Nope," Pick smiled. "Good. I was afraid to wake up." Abby was standing in the corner of the small hangar with Gant, next to an orbital transport that had come with the starship. Like the Faust, it was an old thing, worn and tired-looking. The Faust is the beat-up old ship that they got. It was probably just big enough to carry them planet-side, and though it appeared to be armed with a couple of small plasma cannons, she doubted it would be of much use for combat drops. It looked about as maneuverable as a terraformer. She had toured the Faust with the captain while the others had been sleeping. It was an interesting, eclectic design. 3 levels in total, accessed by one contiguous, large ladder clearly built with both Trovers and Rudin in mind. Level 1 was living space, 4 separate sets of quarters branching off from a central sanitary station, which included the toilet. Considering there were 6 of them, it meant some of them would have to share. While Gant had suggested they bunked together, she had rejected the idea. She had gotten a glimpse of Irie's record when she deactivated her bracelet. She knew why the former RIA Master Chief had been sent to hell. It was better for all of them if they joined forces. Thought I heard my phone ringing. Level 2 was the main operational hub of the ship. The cockpit sat at the front, while most of the electronics, gravity generators, shield generators, communications equipment, and CPUs, were arranged along the center, leading back toward the hangar and the main engines, both sublight and FTL in the rear. Level 3 was storage, in addition to a small armory that was decidedly higher tech than anything else on the Faust. The captain had also been savvy enough to provide less warlike equipment, such as a range of Outworld standard dress and various devices to help disguise their appearance, from basic headdress to folly caps. The time on Hell had left Abby permanently bald, unless or until she could visit a medical facility to have it restored. It would have to be black market medicine, thanks to the prison branding she had received. No legitimate doctor would go near her as long as she bore that scar. Level 3 was also hiding a pair of additional cargo holds, both large enough to store a decent haul of black market goods, each invisible behind false walls along the hull, doubly shielded against scanning to prevent discovery of the goods within. Once Ruby had finished implanting them with their control chips, she had moved on to transferring the 4 Dysterium containers over to one of the holds. Each one of them was worth a fortune. Operating capital, Captain Mann had said. Abby still wasn't quite sure what to make of the director of the OSI. One part of her was in awe of him, his position, his reputation, and the reputation of the department. Another part of her was afraid of him, not because he had the power to kill her, but because he had gone through so much effort to get them out in the first place. While his reasons were logical, she wasn't convinced that letting the lunatics out of the asylum was the best way to stop a war. Were they really lunatics? She felt like one, especially now. Something was happening to her, something she couldn't place or describe, but that she could feel at the edge of her mind and body in those brief moments when she wasn't thinking about anything else. It was as though she had hundreds of worms squirming just beneath her skin, creating a feeling of gross discomfort that she couldn't quite ignore. She broke out of her head when Captain Mann moved to the center of the hangar.
Attention!
He snapped, as good as any Marine drill sergeant. She reacted almost by instinct, coming up straight and stiff, her arms at her sides. The others did the same to various degrees of formality.
I'm going to keep this short and simple, he said. I spoke to most of you individually while you were still a bunch of incarcerated, pathetic remains of formerly promising soldiers.
By the way, this is the first book that I used this voice in, but I'm so glad that I did develop his character so much, because after the next time I used him was in Hero of Thera for Mr. Null. And the thing is, for Mr. Null, I had to use a much thicker German accent. So I actually feel like I've kind of improved this voice by going over to Mr. Null, even though Christoph Waltz's accent is very, very light. I'm still using a relatively light version of that German accent, just with a few little adjustments that I think makes it sound a little bit more authentic. So it's kind of cool to revisit this scene, having made those slight adjustments. He paused, making eye contact with each of them wherever they were arranged in the hangar.
Right now, the only thing that's changed is that you aren't incarcerated anymore. You're on the outside now, and you have a second chance to atone for the mistakes you made and uphold your original oath to protect the Republic.
Can we skip the bullshit speech? Bastion asked. I'm not here to protect the Republic. I'm here because here isn't hell.
Me too,
Pick said. Captain Mann glared at the pilot for a few seconds.
Okay, Worm. Here's the way it is. While you were all sleeping, my assistant, Ruby, was busy implanting a very nasty bug in your brains. You tried to break your orders.
That one was not on purpose.
You tried to break your orders. You tried to run. You tried to do anything that I don't like. I can drop you where you stand and leave you wishing you were back in prison.
He looked at each of them again, one by one.
Before I continue, do any of you want to test me?
None of them moved.
Good. I've already briefed Lieutenant Cage on the parameters of your mission. It's the one and only reason I risked my own ass to get you off of Hell. She'll fill you in on the details. But the most important thing for you to know is this. When you finish the mission, you'll be released from duty. The implant will be removed, and you can do whatever frag all you want with your lives from that point forward. That's your incentive to get the job done. Is that understood?
Yes, sir,
they replied in ragged succession.
Good. Ruby is my conduit to you, and your conduit to me. You can consider her your babysitter, your mommy, or whatever the frag else helps you comprehend that whatever you do, I'll know about it. With that being said, I picked you all because you're the best available at what you do. Maybe the best the Republic has in or out of incarceration. I expect you to do anything, and I mean anything, you have to in order to complete this mission. I don't care who you have to kill, torture, maim, or otherwise put to harm. I don't care how many innocents die. I don't care what you have to destroy, as long as it's in line with mission parameters. Step over that line, and you're as good as dead. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
They said, more synchronized this time.
Good. If you get in trouble, attract too much attention, or are caught in the act, the Republic doesn't know a fragging thing about you, and won't be coming to bail you out. Is that understood?
Yes, sir,
they said, almost as one.
Good. Does anyone have any questions?
Sir, Irie said, does this mean you aren't staying with us?
That's right, Man replied. Your mission is my mission too, but I don't have the luxury of working anonymously. I'll be following up from my office, as well as working on determining if and how the mess at the prison is related to the stolen ships.
Stolen ships? Bastion said.
Like I said, Lieutenant Cage will fill you in.
Sir, what about our families? Ben Hill said. Are we allowed to contact them?
I can't stop you, Man replied, but keep in mind that they think you're gone for good. What would you be putting them through to turn up again, only to disappear if things go bad? Completing the mission means freedom, but that doesn't mean the mission is going to be easy. If it were, I wouldn't need individuals who are otherwise disposable.
Abby flinched at the word, and at the response to the question. She had been considering trying to contact Haley to tell her what had happened. Now she was having second thoughts. It was obvious Captain Man didn't have high expectations, or he wouldn't have come to Hell in the first place, and she couldn't adjust to the thought of getting Haley's hopes up that she might be coming home, and then dying on her. It was better to let her be crushed once and surprise her later than to risk crushing her twice. Of course, she would do anything to ensure she made it back to her. Anything.
Disposable? Pick said angrily. Who the hell are you calling disposable? You need to manage your opinion of yourself, Pick, Man replied. If you were all in hell for one reason or another. No, you were all in hell for one reason or another. You all broke the law. You were all court-martialed. That hasn't changed. Like I was trying to say before, being here doesn't make you any less of a frag-up. Not until you prove your worth.
I'll prove something, you constipate,
Pick muttered. Abby's translator picking an interesting word for the trover epithet.
Any other questions?
Man asked, looking at each of them again.
Yeah, Bastion said. If you're leaving, who's in charge?
I believe Lieutenant Cage is the ranking officer,
Irie said.
That may be so, But we aren't soldiers anymore. We can play at it as much as we want, but our ranks were stripped the moment we were shipped to hell. And they sure as shit won't translate beyond the fringe. Captain? You're right about ranks. They don't mean anything in the Outworlds, and you won't be doing yourselves any favors to use them. Republic military isn't well tolerated beyond Republic space.
Excuse me.
You're fugitives now. Dark Ops. As far as chain of command goes, I trust you'll work out the details on your own.
Bastion smiled.
Yes, sir. Ruby, Man said, is everything ready?
Yes, Captain.
Good. I suggest you all get to know one another a little better. You can hate each other, but you need to be able to work together. He turned to Abby. If you decide you want to tell me more about what happened, talk to Ruby.
Then he started toward the exit from the hangar.
That's it? Bastion said. No goodbye?
What are you, a baby?
Gant said. Shut it, freak monkey.
Bastion replied. Didn't I warn you about calling me that?
What are you going to do about it?
Abby watched as Captain Man slipped from the hangar without looking back. At that moment, she wished that she could go with him. This crew was supposed to retrieve 2 stolen starships from the depths of the Outworlds. He hadn't even left yet, and they were already arguing. She closed her eyes and took a few calming breaths. Then she moved forward, putting herself between Gant and Bastion. She knew she was going to regret it. But what other choice did she have?
Queenie, don't, Gant said. This one needs to be put in his place. He thinks now that he's out of hell, he doesn't need to be afraid of me anymore.
Bastion laughed.
Ha! I was never afraid of you.
Even Abby knew that was bullshit. None of this was going to help.
Gant, wait, she said. Do you want to be in charge, Bastion?
It's not about want. It's about who's the most qualified.
Lieutenant Cage,
Irie said.
Shut up,
Bastion replied. Irie growled, rushing toward him. He smiled, turning toward her as she came in. Abby stopped her, catching her in the midriff and pushing back, throwing her to the floor. She couldn't believe she was defending that asshole, but the worst thing they could do would be to get into a brawl. It might settle the chain of command, but at what cost? The chain would be so weak it would break at the first sign of trouble.
Irie, don't,
Abby snapped, pinning her arms. She looked back at Gant.
You stay there, too.
She shifted her attention to Bastion.
You're in charge, Bastion, she said.
We should at least vote, Ben Hill said. That's the only fair way.
Frag fair, Bastion said. I'm not dying because you wanted a popularity contest. I don't care if any of you like me. I'll get the job done, and you'll all be thanking me when I do.
You couldn't lead a whore to a bed, Gant said. That's why you were always Pox's goon and not his competition.
Gant,
Abby said.
Enough.
Gant didn't look happy to be told what to do, but he quieted.
Any other dissent?
Bastion asked. He clapped his hands together when nobody responded.
In that case, it looks like I'm in command. The first order of business is...
Bastion,
Abby said, releasing her grip on Irie.
I challenge your authority.
What? Bastion said.
You heard me. I don't believe you're fit to lead. How do you want to settle it?
Bastion stared at her in silence for a moment.
But you just told me
that you were in charge. You are. Do we all agree?
Abby looked at the others, who affirmed the decision. Even Irie acquiesced, now that she understood what Abby was up to.
If you're in charge, then I'm challenging it. That's how they handle this bullshit in the Outworlds, which I think is appropriate given our circumstances. Do any of you disagree?
She looked at them all. She looked at them all again. Even Pick shook his head. He couldn't argue with her logic.
She's right, Ben Hill said. If we're heading to the Outworlds, we should do as they do.
How do you want to settle?
Abby asked.
Do you want to fight, or do you want to take your chances matching wits?
Bastion's face paled. He was a pilot, not a breaker. He was trapped, and he knew it.
Maybe Ben Hill was right the first time. We should probably vote.
Fine. How do you vote?
I vote for myself.
Of course you do. Ben Hill?
I vote for myself, too. Not because I want to be in charge, but it's more dramatic.
Pick?
The Trover was hesitant for a moment. Then he shrugged.
I vote for Bastion.
Heh, Bastion said.
Irie? I vote for you. Gant?
I vote for you too, Queenie.
Abby glanced over at Bastion.
It looks like I'm the tiebreaker.
He lowered his eyes to the ground.
Okay. You win. You're in charge.
Thank you,
Abby said. She didn't really want to be in command. She also wasn't about to pin her future on someone else.
Does anyone want to challenge my command?
Nobody jumped at the opportunity.
In that case, let me give you the grand tour of the Faust. Once we're settled, we can reconvene and talk about what we're going to do next. I've got a daughter on Earth waiting for me to come home, and I don't plan to keep her waiting long.
The statement was followed by mumbled affirmations.
We may not officially be Republic soldiers. That doesn't mean you don't make it clear when you've heard and understood an order. Understood? Yes. Yes, what?
Yes, ma'am,
Pick and Ben Hill said.
Yes, Commander,
Irie said.
Yes,
Bastion repeated.
Yes, Queenie,
Gant said. Abby shook her head.
We'll need to work on that.
She headed for the exit. Ruby was already waiting there, having observed the entire interaction.
Well played, Lieutenant Cage, she said. You need to drop the rank too, Ruby,
Abby replied.
It doesn't work anymore.
As much as she hated to give it up, it was part of her identity. Who she was. Past tense. Who was she now?
As you request, Queenie,
Ruby said, smiling. Abby frowned at the use of the nickname Gant had given her.
Not you too. I like it. It is suitable and appropriate.
What would she become? At least she was still alive to find out. All right. So that's chapter 35 of Hell's Rejects. I've always loved that chapter. They do a really good job of getting all these characters to get to know each other and like build up a relationship. M.R. Forbes does. Yes, you should. You should add this to your wish list. That's the point of Sound Booth Theater Live on Wednesdays. So you guys know what's coming up. But yeah, I think I'm going to cut it off here, guys. I need to get back to recording. And I got some big news. So I'm auditioning somebody tomorrow. She's really interesting person. She's not a voice actor per se, but she's looking into it. And I might be having her on on Harmon's next secret project. So I got to get ready for that. I got to clean my house to make it look like a sloppy bachelor doesn't live here. I have to make it look like someone who's actually respectable and adult lives here. So I'm not going to force him to do it on Twitch. But that would be fun. And hey, if she gets the part, maybe I will record it. So yeah, I got interesting stuff coming, guys. I really have a lot of cool ideas, and the recent success of Super Sales on superheroes and all the Delvers books, I mean, those have kind of shot me up like crazy as far as my budget. So I'm going to be able to do a lot more cool things and, you know, expand my business here. So I got a lot of cool ideas. Sound Booth Theater Live is going to become more organized, better. So just keep an eye out for me. Keep sharing these videos. You know, when I post the replays, share those. When you know I'm going to be on, you know, try and get people excited about it, because big things are happening here, and probably in like a month. Michael Ryan Soy Low is just about to giving you you've got the tour of the booth. This is it. Here's the booth. Door, microphone, computer screen. That's it. So, yeah, if you guys can help me spread the word about the show, and get more viewers in here, get it to be more of a viable advertising venue for myself and for anybody else who I decide to be working with in the future, then that would be excellent. So, thanks, Ian, for posting your links at the Discord. I'm sure there's going to be other places, and I'm going to be hiring somebody, one of my good friends, to do some extra marketing for me and my business and Sound Blue Theater Live. I'm going to get this YouTube channel much better. I'm thinking I'm going to be switching more towards YouTube than Twitch, just because it's so much easier for most people. Even though I like the way Twitch looks better, I like the way it kind of works better, it's just Facebook, or it's just that YouTube is where it's at. And actually, I get more views off Facebook than anything, which is kind of weird, I guess. I guess people just kind of, they're able to see it while they flip through their Facebook feed, whereas YouTube is like a place you have to go deliberately to watch it. Facebook, it's like when my feed comes up, they glance at it, and then, maybe it'll catch their attention for a second, and they sit there and watch. So, I don't know, I got to figure out a better way to integrate all three channels. But it's all coming. Things are looking up, and I don't know. I'll figure something out to make this a better show and more widely available and with a wider reach. So, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with me. Next Wednesday, what's happening next Wednesday? I think next Wednesday I'm going to do a requests only, because not next week, but the week after, I'll be working on Book 5 of the Ascension series by Ken Lozito, which is a Podium Publishing title, and, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll do something. Maybe I'll do a little sample of the first book of that series, but I'd have to go back and do some research and remember who these characters are. Yes, requests. So if you guys want to do some requesting, get on the Facebook page and do that. Already, let's see, what was his name? Excuse me. Let's see. Already, just today. Excuse me, guys. That was awful. Christopher Keene made a request today, and so that's at least one thing. It's his book is called Stuck in the Game. It's surprise, surprise. It's a lit RPG. He's trying to get a little bit more exposure for his stuff. I haven't read it yet, but if you guys like it, or if you guys have read it, go ahead and leave some comments on his post there. And of course, make your own posts if you have your own requests. Encourage other people who have not seen the show yet to come and make requests. And I'll start up a list, maybe maybe I'll do 3 or 4 requests next time. So, again, thank you guys so much. And Ian and Truffle, I got free audiobook codes coming to you guys in a bit. So, I guess I'll see you next week.